remote island, a secret biochemical research facility suffered a catastrophic explosion, unleashing a cloud of lethal gas from deep within the base. Local news outlets immediately sounded the alarm, warning citizens of an incoming acid rainstorm and urging them to stay indoors and avoid exposure at all costs. Soon the sky grew darker and the forecasted storm struck with full intensity. At that exact moment, a man had just ended a phone call when he caught the emergency broadcast. Brushing it off with a smirk, he stepped out of his car, and as he got exposed to the rain, a burning pain spread across his skin. He tried to run back inside, but it was already too late. The acidic rainfall was melting his flesh, and soon the chemicals triggered a horrific mutation, turning him into a bloodthirsty zombie. Meanwhile, inside the local police station, life went on as normal. A frustrated woman argued with a female officer about a traffic ticket that couldn't be processed due to a system error. After a tense exchange, the woman angrily exited the building. The moment she stepped outside, the acid rain began to eat away at her body. Screaming in agony, she collapsed just outside the station. The female officer, stunned by what she was witnessing, froze momentarily before calling for help. Her fellow officers rushed out, covering themselves with tarps as they dragged the woman back inside. But by the time she was brought into the morgue, her body had deteriorated beyond saving. Still shaken, the female officer gazed out into the storm through a window filled with unease. Out of curiosity, she cracked the front door open to get a better look, but all she could see was a thick, blinding fog. Just then, a zombie leapt out of the mist and lunged at her. Terrified, she slammed the door shut and ran to inform the others. As if things weren't bad enough, the station's radios and phone lines suddenly went dead, cutting them off from the outside world. Back in the morgue, the coroner examined the woman's body and instructed his assistant to remove the tarp. In doing so, the assistant accidentally spilled residual acid rainwater onto the face of a nearby officer. The man screamed in pain as his skin began to melt. He rushed to the restroom to wash it off, only to discover the water wasn't running. The acid continued to eat away at him until he collapsed. One of his colleagues knelt to check for signs of life, only for the injured man to suddenly spring back to life and bit into the man's arm. Elsewhere in the station, a reporter was filming an interview with a prisoner. As the cameraman recorded, he heard strange sounds coming from the restroom. Curious, he stepped away to investigate. When he didn't return, the reporter called out a few times before deciding to follow. At that moment, the female officer passed by and heard screaming from the restroom. She rushed in and was horrified to see the reporter attacking the cameraman. Believing the reporter had gone mad and committed a murder, the officer shouted at her to freeze and drop any weapon. The reporter, completely stunned, insisted she wasn't the one who attacked. Before the tension could resolve, the supposedly dead cameraman stood back up. Using the distraction, the reporter attacked and knocked the female officer out. Now fully zombified, the cameraman pounced on the reporter, sinking his teeth into her neck. Bleeding and panicked, the reporter staggered out of the restroom. Meanwhile, the female officer who had been knocked out tried to recover. Just as she stood up, another zombie appeared and bit deep into her face. Inside the police station's main office, 3 officers remained oblivious to the growing nightmare beyond their walls. Their calm shattered when a zombie suddenly appeared at the door, pounding violently. The sheriff suddenly realized he hadn't seen his son since earlier and remembered the boy had been in the morgue. He insisted on heading there immediately, and despite their own rising anxiety, the 2 officers with him agreed to accompany him. After equipping themselves with weapons, the team swiftly eliminated the zombie blocking their way and set out. At that same time, the coroner was inside the morgue, searching for his assistant. As he entered the main autopsy room, he was shocked to see that the corpse that had been laid on the table was missing. Suddenly, a zombie lunged at him from the shadows, but he stayed composed, drew his knife and killed the zombie with a swift strike. As he caught his breath, he spotted his assistant, now fully zombified, approaching him. Without hesitation, the coroner killed him as well. However, the threat was far from over. When he cautiously entered the back room, a grotesquely deformed zombie with a disturbingly twisted body limped toward him. Frozen in fear, the coroner couldn't react in time and the creature lunged and bit him with brutal force. Meanwhile, the sheriff and his team arrived at the bathroom where the female officer had last been seen. Inside, they found nothing but blood-splattered walls, and the prisoner they had been holding had also escaped. Suddenly, a zombie emerged at the far end of the hallway. Officer Howie responded instantly, taking it down with 2 precise shots. The group then continued moving forward, desperate to reach the morgue and find the sheriff's son. But their path took a deadly turn when Howie heard a low growl behind him. Before he could react, the zombie female officer crept up behind him and bit into his neck. He managed to wrestle her off and fire a shot, but the damage had been done and he quickly collapsed from blood loss. Lance rushed to help, but just as he checked on Howie, the zombified officer stirred once more. Lance raised his weapon and shot her in the head, ending her for good. After tending to Howie's wounds as best he could, Lance and the sheriff pushed on toward the morgue. Not long after, they found the escaped prisoner, frantically pleading for his life, insisting he wasn't infected. The sheriff and Lance ordered him to flee, but before he could move, a zombie burst from the shadows and attacked him. Using the distraction, the sheriff and Lance slipped through a fire door and finally reached the morgue's entrance. As they opened the door, the sheriff's worst fear was confirmed. His son had already been killed by the mutated coroner. All hope drained from his face as he gazed upon his child's lifeless body. Lance tried desperately to pull him away, warning him that the barricades wouldn't hold much longer, but it was too late. The zombies had broken through and were flooding into the building. Lance fought fiercely, but the wave was too strong. As the zombies closed in, the sheriff, paralyzed by grief, no longer had the will to escape. With his son gone, he chose to meet the end with quiet resolve.